The Green River. It should be a symbol of life, of nature's beauty. But in the summer of 1982 it became something else entirely. A dumping ground. A watery grave. The first body surfaced near Seattle, Washington. A young woman, discarded. Then another and another. Panic gripped the city. Who was doing this? Why? The Green River Killer was born. Fear spread like wildfire. This wasn't just a killer, it was a predator, stalking the streets, targeting vulnerable young women, many of them runaways or involved in street life. The police were under immense pressure. They had a monster on their hands. They needed to stop him. But how do you catch a ghost? The body count rose. Each victim, a daughter, a sister, a friend. Their lives cut short, their stories left untold. The Green River Killer wasn't just taking lives, he was stealing futures. The investigation was complex, frustrating. It was a race against time, a race to stop the killing spree. The Green River Task Force was formed. The best and the brightest minds in law enforcement, working tirelessly, determined to bring the killer to justice. They followed every lead, every hunch, but the killer was always one step ahead. The case quickly became the largest homicide investigation in Washington state history. The pressure was immense. The media scrutiny, relentless. The task force felt the weight of the city on their shoulders. They pored over evidence, interviewed countless people, but the killer remained elusive. Dead ends, false leads. The investigation dragged on. Years turned into a decade. The killer seemed to vanish. Had he stopped, or was he just waiting, biding his time? The Green River Task Force refused to give up. They owed it to the victims. They owed it to their families. They would find the killer, no matter how long it took. Every killer has a beginning, a point where the darkness takes root. For Gary Ridgway, that darkness started early. Born in Utah in 1949, his childhood was troubled, marked by a domineering mother and a strained relationship with his father. Some experts believe this dysfunctional upbringing played a role in shaping his psyche. As a teenager, Ridgway displayed disturbing behavior, cruelty to animals, a fascination with fire, early signs of a deeply troubled mind. But these red flags were ignored, dismissed, and the darkness within him grew. Ridgway struggled to fit in. He was awkward, socially inept. He craved connection but pushed people away. His insecurities festered, fueling his rage, his resentment. He blamed others for his own shortcomings. His anger simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to explode. On the surface, Gary Ridgway lived an ordinary life. He was a truck painter, married with a son, a seemingly normal working-class man. But beneath this facade lurked a monster. He began killing in the early 1980s. His victims, young women on the fringes of society. Runaways, prostitutes, drug addicts. Ridgway preyed on their vulnerability, their desperation. He would lure them into his truck with promises of money or drugs. Then he would drive them to secluded areas, where he could unleash his depravity, his brutality. Ridgway often strangled his victims, sometimes with his bare hands, other times with ligatures. He took trophies, souvenirs of his gruesome acts. He revisited the dump sites, reliving his crimes. He was meticulous in covering his tracks, disposing of the bodies in remote areas. He blended in, a ghost in plain sight. No one suspected the quiet truck painter, the seemingly devoted husband and father. He was a master manipulator, hiding his true nature from the world. Section 5. The walls close in, DNA technology, and a break in the case. As the years passed, technology advanced. DNA profiling emerged as a powerful tool in criminal investigations. The Green River Task Force had kept meticulous records, preserving evidence, hoping for the day science could catch up to their case. In the late 1990s, investigators submitted DNA samples from the Green River case for analysis. They had a hit. The DNA matched Gary Ridgway, a name that had come up in the early days of the investigation. But he had passed a polygraph test. He had seemed like an unlikely suspect. The task force was stunned. Could this be their guy? The break they had been waiting for? They put Ridgway under surveillance, gathering more evidence, building their case. They needed to be sure. They couldn't afford to make a mistake. The pressure was immense. The world was watching. Section 6. A Deal with the Devil. Ridgway's confession and the search for closure. In 2001, Gary Ridgway was arrested, charged with 4 of the Green River murders. He maintained his innocence, but the evidence was mounting. DNA, witnesses, circumstantial evidence. The walls were closing in. Facing the death penalty, Ridgway struck a deal. He agreed to confess to every murder he committed in exchange for life in prison without parole. It was a controversial deal. Some felt he deserved to die for his crimes, but prosecutors argued it was the only way to bring closure to the victims' families to finally learn the truth. Ridgway confessed to 48 murders, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in U.S. history. He led investigators to the remains of some of his victims, bringing a sense of closure to their families. But for many, the pain remained. The scars of his crimes ran deep. Section 7. Voices of the voiceless victims' families speak out. The impact of Ridgway's crimes on the victims' families was devastating. Years of uncertainty, of not knowing what happened to their loved ones. The pain was etched on their faces, in their voices. At Ridgway's sentencing hearing, they had their say. They confronted him, their words filled with anger, sadness, a profound sense of loss. They spoke of daughters stolen, sisters taken too soon, lives forever changed. Their stories were heartbreaking, each one a reminder of the human cost of Ridgway's crimes. They spoke of the importance of remembering, of honoring the victims, of seeking justice. Their courage in the face of unimaginable pain was inspiring. They refused to let their loved ones be forgotten. Section 8. Inside the mind of a killer. Experts analyze Ridgway's motives. Why? It's the question that haunts us. What drives a person to commit such horrific acts? Experts have spent years studying Gary Ridgway, trying to understand the darkness that consumed him. Some believe he was driven by a need for power and control, that he derived pleasure from the act of killing. Others point to his troubled childhood, his deep-seated insecurities, his inability to form meaningful relationships. Ridgway himself claimed he targeted prostitutes because he believed they were disposable, that he wouldn't get caught. But his crimes went beyond simple murder. They were acts of hatred, of depravity, a manifestation of his own twisted desires. Despite years of study, Ridgway remains an enigma, a chilling reminder that some evils defy explanation. Section 9. Lessons learned. The Green River case's impact on law enforcement. The Green River killer case had a profound impact on law enforcement. It highlighted the importance of interagency cooperation, of sharing information, of working together to solve complex crimes. The case also led to advancements in forensic science, particularly in the use of DNA evidence. The Green River Task Force's meticulous preservation of evidence proved invaluable. It allowed investigators to finally identify Ridgway. The case also underscored the importance of victim advocacy, of providing support to the families of those affected by violent crime. The Green River killings left an indelible mark on the Seattle area, but they also served as a catalyst for change, for improving law enforcement techniques, for seeking justice for victims. Section 10. A legacy of loss, remembering the victims and seeking justice. The Green River killer case is a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the shadows, of the vulnerability of those living on the margins of society. But it is also a story of resilience, of the unwavering pursuit of justice. The victims will never be forgotten. Their names are etched in stone at a memorial park near Seattle, a place where families can go to remember, to grieve, to find solace. The case also serves as a reminder that the work of seeking justice never ends. Even with Ridgway behind bars, there are still unanswered questions, unidentified victims. The Green River Task Force continues to investigate, determined to bring closure to every family affected by this tragedy. Section 11. Unanswered questions and the enduring mystery. Even with Ridgway's conviction, a sense of unease lingers. He confessed to 48 murders, but some believe the true number could be higher. There are still unsolved cases, missing women who fit the profile of Ridgway's victims. The Green River Task Force continues to investigate these cases, hoping to connect the dots, to bring closure to more families. But some questions may never be answered. The Green River killer case is a chilling reminder of the capacity for evil that exists in the world. It is a story that continues to haunt us, to challenge our understanding of human nature. And it serves as a stark reminder that even in the face of unimaginable darkness, we must never give up hope. We must never stop seeking justice. We must never forget the victims.